Hi, today on Your Ag Empire, we're getting real. Our guest is Terryn Drieling, Nebraska rancher, writer, and rural relationship guide. She's here to talk about the hard and holy work of healing emotional, mental, generational. This conversation is for anyone who's felt the weight of keeping it all together, and for those ready to do the slow and brave work of change. So, Taryn, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the Your Ag Empire podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. I guess, if you don't mind, just to kick us off and get started, can you tell everyone a little about you and a little about yourself?
Yeah. So, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and excited for our conversation. A little about me. I grew up in Northeast Nebraska on a small feed yard. I thought I was going to go be a veterinarian, and I went to college with that in mind. And then physics happened, and I decided that was not for me. So I changed my major to feed yard management. I did an internship in Western Nebraska. That's what got me out here. Well, that and my husband who wanted to relocate to this area. I did the feed yard thing for a little over 7 years, and I thought that's where I was going, was feed yard management. And then God, life, the universe had different
Yeah.
plans for me. And so
Yeah.
we ended up on this ranch that we're on now, and that has been a whole trajectory on its own. I've taken what I know about stockmanship and watching and observing the cattle on the ranch and observing human to human interactions and applied stockmanship principles to how we communicate with fellow humans. And that's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
at now.
I love that. So let's dig into a little bit of that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. So I have followed you on IG for a while, Taryn. I don't know if you know this or not, but I actually watched you speak at a Cultivating Courage seminar probably 5 years ago. It's been a hot minute. It was fantastic. And so at the time, I think you were going under the name Faith, Family, and Beef. So tell us a little bit about what led you since then to evolve your brand from Faith, Family, and Beef to what you're doing now, and maybe discuss a little bit more about that. I'm
Yeah.
going to let you say all the things.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So, yeah, cultivating courage was a while ago. And I think I talked about the Enneagram, and that's part of this story that I'm about to
Yes.
tell. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I started in 2014 as Faith, Family, and Beef. I had gone to one of our local cattlemen's meetings, and there was a person there from, oh gosh, I can't even remember the organization now, but it was a ag
Yeah.
advocacy organization, and they were talking about how we need to tell our story in ag because if we don't, someone else will. And then shortly after that, I went to, and so that kind of got me intrigued about sharing more of our story. Then shortly after that, I went to our Nebraska Young Cattlemen's Convention. There, Darren Williams, who was with NCBA at the time, he was there and he was talking about this new program they had called the Masters of Beef Advocacy, which really led producers into learning how to share their story. And so I did that, and I was very excited about sharing the story of ranching and beef and all that. So I started writing for our local newspaper, and it was Terrence Beef Bite in the Bridgeport
Oh, how fun. Yeah.
Newsblade.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's what I could do at the time with working full time at the feed yard. And then in 2013, things changed for my husband and I, and we ended up on the ranch that we are on now. I worked at the feedlot for a while after that, for a few months, but we were a lot further, and the whole driving and daycare situation, I was not in a good place. So I had to resign my post at the feedlot. But what that did is it gave me time to dive into sharing our story more. And that's where Faith, Family, and Beef really started and came alive. And I started with a blog, and then I added social media, and then I added an online shop with some steak rub and some Beef Builds Beautiful Bodies hats, and just continued to evolve over the years. And then in the summer of 2016, August actually of 2016, I was out moving our herd of cows, or the herd of cows that we take care of here on this ranch that we work for. I was out there by myself, just my dog and I. And I had started the first few pair through the gate into the fresh pasture. And I was just sitting up on the hill watching as the rest of the cows picked up their calves and headed off in the same direction. And it got me thinking about this phrase that we have in stockmanship: good movement draws good movement, and how you can't have good movement if you are not aware of how you're communicating and aware of what the cattle are communicating to you, and then using that and communicating with them in such a way that it leads to a low stress move on both you and the animal. In 2016, at that time, it was a hotly contested election year. All election years are hotly contested,
Mhm.
but this one was the
Yes.
first one where social media was a giant. Before that, I mean, social media was around for several years before that, but not like,
Yeah.
it wasn't the same space. And it was
All involved and
really,
really loud about it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so polarized. And
Hmm.
me being an Enneagram 9 peacekeeper, I had a really hard time with that. And so while I was sitting there on that hill, I was like, if we can communicate with cattle who don't speak English and
Yeah.
don't have the same body language in such a way that it leads to this low stress movement and understanding, can those principles apply to our human to human interactions? Ultimately, I decided yes. And not only is it applicable, but it's kind of necessary, or I felt like it was necessary. And so I promptly set that idea aside for a couple of years. So that came to me in 16, and I didn't start fleshing out the idea until 18. And then I was introduced to the Enneagram, and that brought me more self-awareness, more social awareness, and it just sort of snowballed into what I'm doing today. But there were some events. I was teaching the Enneagram when you saw me at Cultivating Courage, and I taught the
Yes.
Enneagram pretty exclusively until 23. I think I started in 21 and I taught it through first quarter of 23. And then my dad passed away suddenly and unexpectedly in May
Oh,
of
goodness.
23. And so I just kind of shut everything down. That is actually, so I said this all snowballed. That was what really pushed the snowball down the hill really fast, was my
Right.
dad passing,
Mhm.
because I couldn't, like, I had been a pretty good shover downer of emotions for all of my
Mhm.
life. And I know the Pink Floyd song Comfortably Numb is about doing drugs, but I had found ways to become comfortably numb without doing drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when my dad passed, I couldn't numb that. And so
Hmm.
I sought out help. And that is like, through that healing process, I came back and started my own podcast in November of
Hmm.
23, because at the time that was what felt like I was following my gut completely there. I'm like, this feels right. I need to talk about this. Other people need to know that there's a better way than just being comfortably numb your whole life. And
Yes.
so that's kind of what got me to where I am today with my podcast. And I have a group program, and I also do one on one guidance with other people, rural people, farmers, ranchers who want to not be numb.
And Taryn, your podcast is called Draw Good Movement, right? What draws good movement?
Good movement draws good movement. Yeah.
Yes, good move. I didn't get the whole thing in there. So good movement draws good movement. So everyone
Yeah.
go listen, because I have listened to some good tidbits out of there. And I like it because they're short and sweet usually. And
Yeah.
I take a little nugget away from the day. And so I have very much enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you.
Taryn, I'm also Enneagram 9. And so I am the peacekeeper and peacemaker. And I feel like it's interesting. I feel like actually doing a podcast shows like this is it has interestingly been difficult for me, because it's like I want everyone to be happy, or to get out of it what they need to get out of it, right? Like all the listeners. But I think I can see how the Enneagram studies kind of have led into this whole movement. And I know you kind of talked about it just a little, but speak a little further into like, what does that mean to you? Good movement draws good movement. What does it mean to you? How did it become your compass? I know we talked about kind of the origin story, but do you mind diving in a little deeper?
Actually, I have my Good Movement Draws Good Movement shirt on today too.
You do. Oh, good. Yes.
Good movement, when whether we're talking about cattle or people, it starts with us. And so as it pertains to cattle, cattle can sense our energy really well, and other humans can sense our energy too. And if our energy is really loud and aggressive, the cattle are going to
Mhm.
pick that up, and other humans are too. And maybe the reason that it's loud and aggressive is because you got in a fight with your spouse. You are just seething with anger, like you're trying to shove it down and you're not outwardly expressing it, but it's there, right? And so, good movement starts with us would be becoming aware of that anger, acknowledging it, letting it out so that it's not affecting the cattle or people around you. But acknowledging it is really hard because we've been taught that anger is not okay, especially women have been taught that anger is not okay. And so we need to shove it down. And the same goes for sadness and grief and anything pretty much that isn't happy and joyful. We've been taught that those are things to be hidden.
What I think I've taken away from some of your teachings on your podcast, even, is that, and it's okay for some of those emotions to exist at the same time. So it's
Mhm.
okay to be sad and happy, or angry and joyful. I don't, maybe not those
Yes.
two. Maybe they can. I don't know. But
Yes, for sure.
that's
Two things
so
can be
I've
true.
yes, I have really enjoyed, I don't know, digging in and listening to your takes there. And I think I really appreciate that it's out there, even in little snippets or longer sessions, because I feel like in rural America, rural ag, and I know this is your whole platform, we really struggle to talk about mental and emotional health. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Something that's happened over time? I don't
Yeah,
know.
and it's not just within agriculture, right? It is it's a societal thing, but within agriculture, I think the message is stronger because of all the things out of our control that we have to deal with. I think that there's a little bit of fear there that if we acknowledge the sadness and grief, like cows die sometimes. And that's hard. I think sometimes we have this belief that if we let ourselves experience that sadness instead of shoving it down and being comfortably numb or callous, we won't be able to handle it, that it will
Mhm.
break us. When
Yeah.
in fact, the opposite is true. If we keep shoving all of that stuff down and never letting it out and acknowledging it and feeling it, it will break us.
I don't know if there's truth to this or not. And I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast before or not. And maybe you can attest to this, but I think I read at one point that tears actually release like a small amount of cortisol, and so like actually crying actually
Hmm.
makes you feel better, because I know I've used that on my kids a lot, like in a good way. Like if they're sad, I'm like, it's okay, feel it, cry it out. I guess we've heard cry. I'm like, cry it out. Like you need to cry. If you're sad, cry. It's okay to cry. And so I remember telling my son one time, it actually will make you happier to cry. And
Yeah.
I think my science brain somehow went to like, it's true. Like I went down like a rabbit hole. Like it's true. You
Yes. Yes. Tears
cry.
are a nervous system regulator. And the
Yeah.
more you hold them back, the more dysregulated you become. So just let them out.
Just let them out. Yeah. Even if it's in a joyful way, like, I mean, how
Yeah.
many times have you happy cried? So
Oh,
sometimes I
yeah.
think it's okay, or all the time it's okay. I think I've also heard you use the phrase hard and holy work a lot. What does that mean in this context of emotional, mental, just healing of the being, of the soul of the person?
It's hard work. I'm not going to lie. I tell
Yeah.
people who work with me, I tell them this is a slow burn. I'm sure you've seen that there's memes on the internet that are like, healing isn't linear. It is not linear. I was just actually having a conversation this morning about how when you're healing, it's not like you're never going to get triggered again. Things will
Mhm.
bump up against you and it will hurt. That's not the point of healing. The point of healing is so that you have the capacity to take the hard and walk through it. It's not so that the hard won't affect you anymore. It's so that you know how to walk through it and process it. When you're healing, like I said, there will be triggers. And it's like when you actually have a wound, like a scrape or a cut, and something rips that scab off. things will happen like that in your emotional healing too. And it's going to feel really terrible. And you're like, have I even made any progress? You have. And eventually that will heal and there will be a scar. And I have talked about this on my podcast before. I have a scar on my
Yeah.
knee that every now and again I'll bump and it'll send like a zinger up my leg and it hurts,
Yeah.
but it's not like when the cut was fresh. It's like short and I know what I need to do. Like the example I used in the conversation this morning is now when that trigger hits, it's anger I feel. And when I feel the anger, then I know that I need to set a boundary and hold a boundary. And so
Hmm.
I do that. And then it's like bumping the scar on my knee. It's there and then it's gone. It doesn't linger. I don't revert back into my old protections. And it feels really good. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt to be triggered. It does. But what feels good is knowing how to move through it. And
Yeah, is the
so,
growth on the other side of it. Like like
yes,
once you get to the other side, almost like recognizing the growth and your
yes.
awareness. I noticed the thing and this is how I'm going to deal with it moving forward. I know that you work with some people one-on-one. So how do you guide people through some of this work, relational, emotional growth? I guess for someone interested without judgment, I think a lot of us sometimes are hesitant to reach out for help to anyone, for fear of judgment.
Mhm. This is always kind of a loaded question. I don't know if that's the right
I
terminology,
know.
but
I know.
because I don't have a framework. I think when people come, they're looking for a framework. I don't think I know because they've specifically asked if when we have a consult call, what's the framework? What's this look like? What are our steps? And I don't have anything that is hard and fast and for everyone. We're not taking the same steps for everyone because it's so personal to the
Mhm.
individual. The only thing that is the same across the board is that I am here with you. I am witnessing and being there with you in whatever it is that you are going through, feeling. And as humans, oftentimes that's the thing that we need the most is just someone to be with us all in and not trying to fix it or saying, well, it could be worse or you need to get back on that buckskin. We just need someone sitting with us and bearing witness to our pain. And that is the only thing that is the same across the board for the people that I work with. But beyond that, it's really personal to what they need.
Yeah. I think
So,
that's so beautiful because even though we're all the same beings, the same creature, but we're not. Like we all have our own unique circumstances and
mhm.
situations, and whatever our life story is different than your life story. I actually think that's really beautiful because then you get to really experience life side by side, someone in a way that you're experiencing it for the first time through their stories, but you get to lead them through the hard and holy work.
So, like,
That's
I've worked with people that their self worth is not great. I've worked with people who don't talk nicely to their body. It's just different things for
all
different
kinds.
people. That's where we start, as I sit with you and
Yeah.
I'm there with you, and you're not in it alone.
And Taryn's like, take my hand and we're going to do
Yes.
this.
Come
Yeah.
here and I'll hug you, even
Yes.
if
Oh,
you're
I
not a
love a good
hugger.
hug. I know. I'm not a hugger, but I love a good virtual hug. It's like, yes, I can feel it.
Because, like we just talked about, tears are nervous system regulator.
Hmm.
Hugging
Hmm.
is also a nervous system regulator. And so I also do a private podcast that goes a little more in depth with some actual exercises that's different
Uh-huh.
than the public podcast. And one of the most recent ones is about hugging yourself, because if you
Hmm.
don't have anyone to hug or you don't like being hugged by other people, you can hug yourself and that helps regulate your nervous system as well.
Interesting. Yeah,
That
that's
was a
great.
nice little tangent rabbit
Yeah.
hole I just went on.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. What does it look like when someone starts to reconnect with themselves or starts, like, I don't know, what is that from your viewpoint? What does it start to look like when someone's able to kind of step through, if you will, into the hug or into the whatever it may be?
It's such like I'm so humbled to get to witness some of these transformations that I see in people. What it looks like in the beginning, it could be, I mean, again, it's different for everyone, but like eye contact. Sometimes when people
Mhm.
first start with me, we meet via Zoom, so we're face to face. And it's hard on Zoom with eye contact anyway. The eye contact is more focused the more that they start to heal and regulate. Their body language and posture, you can see just it. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just like
Mhm.
they're lighter and brighter and ready to go take on the day. And it's just really incredible. And I'm so, like I said, humbled and honored that I get to walk with people through that and witness that.
Yeah, I love all of this. I have gone through my own personal health journey over the last year and a half, 2 years. I'll be honest, it was motivated by I needed a physical change, but I feel like I can't pinpoint any one thing or attribute any one thing because I think over the last 2 years, I have done work on these very subjects that you're talking about, the mental, emotional work. And I think they just walk beautifully together with the physical. And I think sometimes it's just easier to see the physical transformation, but I know, and I'm sure you've seen it in the clients that you work with and
Yeah.
folks. I guess I'm sure talking about attachment or attunement to others, how does this work and how have you seen it even within yourself and your own family? How has this changed your own family dynamic?
That's a great question. And it's so obvious to me. None of us have the same parents. Like, I have two brothers, and none of us have the same parents because our parents are going through different things at different times when we're born and all. Being a parent myself with three kids, I can see so obviously where like the difference in the kids. Like our oldest, I was a new mom, I was working full time at the feed yard. If I had it to do all over again, knowing what I know now, I would have done things vastly different than I did. But if I went back and did it with the same information that I had then, in the same situation, I would have done it exactly the same because we're all doing the best that we can with what we have. And I was doing what was best for me, for him in that time. But
Mm-hmm.
now I can see where that lack of, because here's what I did. I'll just say what I did. I worked at the feedlot, so I had to be up early. So I had him doing the cry it out method for sleep. And knowing what I know now, that did not send the message that I thought it was sending. Like, it teaches them to self-soothe, but it also teaches them that their parent isn't there for them. What that looks like now for our oldest is like he will hold things in, hold things in, thinking that he has to do it on his own instead of coming to us. And then when we either ask him or he comes to us, then it's like a big emotional release rather than just moving through your emotions in 90 seconds or less. Like if he knew that it was okay to come to us, he knows it's okay logically, but that his nervous system is still set to cry it out. And I'm not, don't take this as me saying that I'm a bad parent.
No.
Like I said, I
Yeah,
did
yeah. Yeah, we know.
what was best.
Yeah.
I can just see those little things. Whereas our youngest, where I wasn't working at the feedlot, she would wake up in the night. The first time I would lay her down in her crib, she would go to sleep. She'd wake up in the night and need to eat, and I would just go lay with her the rest of the night. Like she was literally attached to me. And she is more apt to come to us and talk to us and be open with her feelings and what's going on than our older child. Here's the good news. When there are holes in the attachment and attunement, they can be filled, they can be repaired. And so we're late to the game with our older kid, but we are working towards that. And it's just shifted my whole perspective. And now I'm like, the kids are probably like, Mom, we know. But I'm like, I just want them to know that I am there for them and like notice these things in them and see when they are going through things. And that solid foundation of having a safe space to land is going to set them up better throughout life because life is hard. And I think sometimes
Yes.
we think we need to teach our kids that life is hard with consequences and punishments and things of that nature, when in reality, they need to have somewhere safe to land so they can rest and digest so that they can
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
withstand the hard that life throws at them. If they're
Yeah.
getting that double dose of hard from life and us, then they never get the
Yeah.
chance to recharge.
But what an encouragement to hear and know that there's even if the holes, they can be repaired, and that someone's here to walk them through it. I think the first step they always say is awareness. So it's like, if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, how do I fix it? And so I have even personally been in these struggles with my children, my spouse, friends, whoever. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know. Exactly what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
You did the best you could with the information you had at the time. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware. I'm going to reach out for help, and let's fix the thing. Tell me more about the role of communication. How does communication play into healing?
This goes back to good movement draws good movement and what we talked about a little earlier. It starts with you. Doing the inner work and doing some healing on your own is by default going to draw good movement in the people around you. There's so many things where good draws good. And so by doing that healing inner work for yourself, you're aware, and you're not only are you aware, you're working actively to learn how to process those emotions that you've held on to for a long time. And as a result, you are building the capacity. Keeping in the kid story, your kids reflect back to you. And so when you're triggered by
Mm-hmm.
your kids, it usually has something to do with your childhood. So, say you don't like it when your kids are being loud and rowdy. Well, maybe that's because you got reprimanded for being loud and rowdy. And so now they can't be loud and rowdy because that has been ingrained in you. The
Mm-hmm.
neural pathways are built. We're not loud and rowdy. And so by doing the aware, like being aware and doing the work to process your own emotions that you've held on to, you build that capacity for them to be loud and rowdy. Now, I'm not saying you can't, like, because kids need to be kids and play, and sometimes that's loud and rowdy, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you have to be like, oh, it's fine to be loud and rowdy all the time. No, there are boundaries. Like, I would love for you to be loud and rowdy, and you need to do that outside.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm not saying don't have boundaries, but to the communication point, saying to them, okay, so say that they're angry or sad and crying. And a lot of us growing up heard to dry it up, or cowgirls don't cry. I mean, Brooks and Dunn wrote a song about it.
Suck
And
it up. Yeah.
yeah,
All the
suck it
things.
up,
Yeah.
rub some dirt in it, get back on that
Yeah.
buckskin, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So in communication, and this isn't just for your kids, but if you see something like that going on in your kid or your spouse or your brother, sister, employee, whatever, you say, I see that something is upsetting you. And that
Mm-hmm.
validation is so important. All humans want to be seen and heard and feel felt. And so just by acknowledging that you see that something is going on is so important. Going back to the kid in the boundary example, you see they're angry. I see that you're angry. That's really frustrating. And we don't hit our sister.
Yes. Yeah. That's been one of the most encouraging things to me. I have worked closely with a dietitian for a little while. I feel like our first several appointments together, it was the first time I'd ever really heard someone say that to me. She would always say, "I see you, I hear you," and then she would give me her recommendation for how to fix whatever it is. I very much feel this to my bones. Like, it was just the validation or acknowledgement of like being seen and heard, and then let me give you the fix. So if someone can do
Mm-hmm.
it with a grown adult, surely this works with children. I mean, in your example, but with anyone.
So I've given a couple of talks in rooms with a lot of older rancher men. And
Mm.
when I put the examples of how to validate people on the screen, I always
Uh-huh.
love show of hands. Who thinks these are soft? And hands go up. And I say, if Charmin can be soft and strong, so can we.
Oh,
And
I love
and then
that.
I use the example of cat, like I bring it back to something that they know and
Yeah.
understand, which is cattle. And if you aren't validating your animals, you're going to get run over or you're going to have busted fences. So I bring it back because we do, as ranchers, validate our animals every time we work with them. If we see a cow with her head up and her eyes wide and her body's tense, we know we better stop and take a step back. That's the equivalent of saying, I see you, I hear you,
Hmm.
to a
Hmm.
cow. And so
Yes.
I think a lot of times we think that validation is agreement and or understanding, and it's neither. It's just
Hmm.
acknowledgement. You don't
Yes.
have to agree or understand. Just see and acknowledge.
Yeah, I agree. It's so powerful. So powerful. I know we've talked about a lot of stuff. What, if we talk about the big picture, I guess let's just talk about big picture. What does true wellness or maybe true healing look like? I'm just going to ask specifically for a rural family, but I feel like it's applicable to anyone. What do you feel like that looks like?
That is a great question.
It's a big
So
question.
it is a big question. And maybe it's like the other things that we've talked about today, but like, it might look different for everyone. But to me, it
Yeah.
looks like having a safe space to communicate with your
Hmm.
family, where you're not afraid to go to the sort alley because you're going to put the wrong black white face in, like
In the wrong
that sort
thing.
of thing. You're not going to get screamed at. It's a safe space where there's open communication, and I think that really boils down to having some regulated nervous systems within the family, because I wholeheartedly believe good movement draws good movement. Not everyone has to be on board at first. If
Hmm.
you are in a family and the dynamic, like a family operation, and the dynamic feels stressful and hard, and that's putting it lightly, and
Yes.
you want to do things differently, if you can, that good movement that you're bringing up within yourself will draw good movement from other people. Again, it's going to be slow, but good movement does draw good movement.
Yeah. I feel like that's the whole part of my questions were going to be like, how do you deal with resistance? But I feel like maybe you be the example. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly how you deal with resistance. Humans learn best through imitation. And so, doing that work and doing things different, people are going to take notice. And again, say this over and over, it's going to be slow, but they're going to learn better that way than by you telling them. Or personal example, when I started in with inner work and specifically Enneagram self-awareness work, I was so
mhm.
into it. My husband would come to me and he would talk to me, and I would be like, oh, this Enneagram that, and da 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 da. And finally he said to me, can you please stop Enneagramming me? And so I did. I did stop
Uh-huh.
blatantly, but I was still using what I had learned
Using it.
about the Enneagram in our interactions. And eventually, I had started another podcast with a friend a few years ago. It was called Type It Out with T and Cass. And it's still, I think you could still listen to it, but we just chatted about the Enneagram. And he listened to the episode where I interviewed Cass about being an Enneagram 1. He's also an Enneagram 1. And he texted me. I was on my way to EMT class, actually. And he texted me and he's like, I thought you were just blowing smoke. I did not know there were other people out there like me. And this is great. And you guys need to do more podcast episodes. And so, like, it was slow. It was slow. But by me doing the work, my own work, it did two things for me. It built my capacity to handle like the hard things
Handle.
that came to me,
Yeah.
and showing him, or it was leading by example. And then he slowly but surely came on board and like got into it more on his own, which is
Yeah.
what I would blatantly say to him. Can you please do something, and that
Yeah.
didn't work. It didn't work.
Just had to be like natural progression. Well, I
Hmm.
think what I was going to speak to, I feel like the work, it's not just individual, but community building. Why do you think this works?
That's a great point, because humans are wired for connection. Like our
Mhm.
brains are hardwired for connection. And so you can start on your own, but when you are doing it as a family unit or a group, it expedites the process because you have those stronger connections, and your brain is like, "Ah, yes, connection, safe spaces with other people who understand, or even if they don't understand, they're willing to sit with me in this." And so that really is also important. And that's the thing, like I started doing this inner work all on my own, but then after my dad passed, I recognized that I needed more. Like I needed someone to sit with me and help me.
Mhm.
I
Mm-hmm.
needed that sort of connection. You can do some of this on your own. That's what the Draw, my private podcast, is for, is to start this process on your own. Also, we need humans. Humans need humans. It's important, even if you're not working with someone like me, to have a safe human that you can talk to, whether that's your spouse or your mom or your dad or your bestie. You need somebody because humans need connection.
So part of what the Good Movement Collective, is it partly group or is it all one-on-one with you?
No, it's a group. So actually, here in about an
Okay.
hour, we have our one of our biweekly calls, and we
Awesome.
meet as a
Okay.
group. And what we do in there is we check in. What's going well? What's a struggle? We share the good. We share the bad. We share the ugly. We're there for each other, like to lift each other up and support each other. And when we're not having Zoom calls, we have a group chat. So if something hits the fan in between group calls, we can come in there. There's weekly journal prompts. And then there are one-on-one calls with me, but it's heavy on the group aspect.
So I feel like that's the perfect, beautiful illustration of like we're all doing our individual work, but collectively, hence I guess Good Movement Collective,
Yeah.
collectively we're better. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that's beautiful. Where do you see Good Movement draws Good Movement going from here?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so in the near future, I've had some people bring up that they just want like a group chat that they can come to, like not necessarily so intense like the collective where we have calls every other week and then you have one-on-one calls, but just somewhere that they can come and meet other rural women who get it. And so
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
the working name right now is The Gather.
Love
So
it. I love it.
working
Yeah.
on that. I would really love, and this is where I see this going, but working with families, break some of those generational cycles,
I love
heal some
that.
of those generational wounds. That's like, I,
Yeah, I love that idea because I feel like growth is not linear, like you said earlier. But I feel like as I've done my own work, now as we've spoke, trying to bring that into my family life and the dynamics there, and how cool would it be to also have other moms or parents or gathering a group of people to help navigate that when we
Mhm.
all, I don't know, when we're all trying to not struggle through, but kind of do the hard and holy work together, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if you have a takeaway, what do you wish every ranch wife, farmer, rural parent knows?
Oh my gosh, I have to take it down to
I don't know.
one thing.
I don't know. That's a big question. That's a big,
I
maybe
think
not every, maybe, yeah. One top one. How's that?
I think I can do one. Because, like I
Okay.
said, if you show me any issue we face as humans, I'll show you how the root is connection. And so I would say, I just wish that everyone understood the power of connection. Connection over correction. We
Yes.
need connection more than we need corrected.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and by default, if you build those, like grow those strong connections with your people, pretty soon there's not going to be any need or desire for correction because they're not going to, like, they're going to know that they have support and they're going to come to you rather than feeling like they can't and making a not
Yeah.
great decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's cause for correction. Like, connection trumps correction all the way.
Yeah.
And
That's
again, I'm
beautiful.
not saying don't have boundaries. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Yes.
connection
Yes.
first.
Yes. I agree. Well, where can listeners connect with you, learn more, or join your programs?
So I am on Instagram. I rebranded to myself, Terryn.Drieling, Terryn .Drieling.
Mhm.
I've got a hard name all the way around.
Yeah.
And then my podcast, of course, is Good Movement Draws Good Movement. And we have weekly episodes. Most of them are under 20 minutes, unless I have a guest, and then we talk longer. And then my website is terrendreeling.com. And that's where you can learn more about my programs and join my email list to stay informed for things like when the gather is available.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
I'm going to
at.
be looking for that. Great. Thank you so much for joining me today, Taryn. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned so much. I feel like we'll be chatting more soon. If this episode stirred something in you, if you're ready to stop surviving and start connecting, reach out to Terryn. Her work isn't flashy, but it is real. And in this space, that's exactly what matters. Please subscribe, share with a friend, and we'll see you next time on Your Ag Empire.